Hi, how you all doing? Hope well. I know we're all trying to cope with this, with quarantine. Some people are desperate to go back to work, and it's a difficult situation for everybody. Yeah, nobody knows when this is going to be over. So, trying to distract you, if possible, from what's happening in the world, even just briefly. Of course, not to take what's happening in the world lightly, because it is a drama. It's a world calamity. But we have to try to keep sound, stay safe, of course, and keep sound. And since my last Instagram live, there were a few questions that were left unanswered. So I just wanted to take some time now to do that. I'm actually back at the studio. I'm able to come to work. I take a back entrance, so I don't cross myself with anybody. I don't cross paths with anybody. And I'm here because I have to finish some sculptures that were planned, and it's definitely completely safe. Leave my house and I come here. Use, as I said, separate entrances, so it's okay. Because of course I am worried, and like everybody else. So let's get into the questions. So a few of you asked me how and when you decided to become an artist. I think like with anybody, when that is an artist, there's no moment to say, I want to become an artist. I personally started just doodling. I was doodling, drawing all the time, and I remember when I wasn't able to do my homework correctly or to do a class exam correctly, I would just make a little drawing for the teacher, like asking forgiveness. And in one of the report cards, the teacher called my parents in and said, look, we want to talk to you about Lorenzo. Lorenzo can draw very well. And they were like, oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. I was so happy to hear that. Yes, but you should just remind him that this is a math class. So that was going on. And basically I started drawing, and then from drawing I went to painting. Back then I was also singing, and I was also acting. So I knew I wanted to do something artistic. I just didn't know exactly what. Sculpting, I wasn't sculpting yet. I was carving a little bit, but sculpting is very difficult in the sense that it's quite expensive. So when you're starting off, usually people don't start right away sculpting. They start something else. They start probably drawing or at least modeling. And I remember that I couldn't cast my first sculptures. So I would use another material called bonded bronze, which looks a little bit like bronze. At least the surface looks like bronze. And then if somebody liked the piece and wanted to buy it, then I would cast it for them. So I started off as a painter, and then I guess I just went into sculpting. I remember because a gallery director actually said that my paintings looked very three-dimensional, and that I should try sculpting. So I tried sculpting, and I asked him, what do you think I should sculpt? He said, look, everybody says that the most difficult thing to sculpt are hands. Why don't you try hands? Well, little did he know that I tried hands and I never stopped making them. So that was the beginning of my sculpting. Another question was, what inspires you? What inspires me? Well, life inspires me. My family, a book, what's happening now for sure will have an effect on my work. As you know, a lot of my sculptures are inspired by nature, and what's happening in the world. I did a piece back in 2004 about the tsunami in Thailand, the horrific loss of life there. The piece was called The Force of Nature. And of course, all my other sculptures about Gaia and support in Venice and building bridges have a lot to do with what's happening in the world now. But then I also have more intimate sculptures, you know, about life and death. When I lost my father, I made a sculpture called Ascension. That was so that was a moment that I felt I needed to say something. Oh, by the way, you asking me if does pain and joy inspire? Yeah. So again, when I lost my father, I made this sculpture called Ascension. I also made another one called Time Flies, which I actually think is one of my better works of art. I was quite young when I did it. I was early 20s. I was 21, 22, and I was already thinking about about time flying, about time going by, taking advantage every moment of your life and living it to its fullest, and how really time is fleeting. And the moment you realize it, you try to stop it, and you can't stop it. It's like trying to gather sand in your hand, and it keeps sifting through. So yeah, that was Time Flies. So pain, yes, inspires. I think anything that moves you somehow emotionally, that strikes you, is very good for creating. So also, of course, like the births of my children, they were quite inspirational. Good events inspire, but they inspire kind of different sculptures. So a happy event, of course, will inspire a positive sculpture. A sad event will inspire, of course, a sculpture probably the deeper meaning behind it, thought behind it, not deeper meaning, but probably more intense. Why do you use hands? Yeah, people keep asking me that, and well, I'm Italian, so I love using my hands. I use my, we can't speak if we're not moving our hands. In fact, if they tie our hands behind it, non posso dire niente. But aside from that, I decided a long time ago that the kind of artist I wanted to be was an artist that was going to spread messages. So how do you spread a message if nobody understands what you're saying? That's one of the reasons why I chose not to be an abstract artist. For me, it's very important actually that people understand what I'm saying through my art. Of course, I'm not always in front of the sculpture, so I can't always explain it. And so I'm more of a storyteller rather than probably a sculptor in a sense. Each sculpture carries a message. And I realized a long time ago that, especially because I exhibit all over the world, all 5 continents, and culturally, it's easier to express things through obviously a universal language, and I've come to realize that hands do that very well. I'm able to express a lot of emotions just through hands. So I do that, and I keep doing that. Of course, I don't only make hands because that would be quite boring. How many hands can you make? But by the way, during this quarantine, COVID, I did draw 2 new pieces. One is called Selfless Love, and I hope it's going to be a nice piece. And of course, it's just hands. And another one is called Together. Again, just a pair of hands. So I'm quite excited to start working on those. Who inspires you most? Who inspires you most? Well, as I said before, definitely my family. My wife is very inspirational. She's very intelligent, and she's my best critic in the sense that she's not afraid to say that I'm wrong. Actually, she's a little bit too unabashed by that. So yeah. Well, I think it's important, especially as as you grow as an artist, to have people next to you. I have fantastic people at my studio that have been with me for ages, and they're really wonderful, and they're completely honest with me. Unfortunately, many times. I'm kidding. That's actually good that they are. So yeah, I mean, it's important to surround yourself by people that are honest and not afraid to tell you, listen, what you did was not nice. Either redo it or rethink it. So most of the times I listen. Not all the times. I am an artist, and so sometimes I feel very strongly about something, and even if people disagree with it, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. I guess that's part of being an artist. You have to believe in yourself, and so like Galileo Galilei, eppur si muove, and yet it moves. Is that what he said in English? So yeah, that's that. And what suggestions would you give a young artist starting out? This is very interesting. Oh, it's times are changing. So now it's in one sense it's easier to get your work out there, but it's harder because there's so much work out there. And what I mean by that is, through social media now, you can get to people in a way, but also the people that you're getting to are being bombarded by others all the time. I remember when I was, cold calling. I remember when I was starting out, and I was sending photographs of my work to galleries and to collections, to collectors, trying to be noticed. And eventually what I did is I went to an art fair. I think art fairs are fantastic, and I appeared as I went as the artist. I didn't go with a gallery. So they had a section where artists could exhibit their work at the Jacob Javits Center Art Expo in New York City. And by the way, there I got some good work. I got work by Absolut Vodka, and they commissioned me to make 3 pieces for them, and which was, for me, was huge, because then they did a whole campaign on the back of magazines. It was on the back of Newsweek. It was on the back of GQ, of People magazine, all the top magazines, because all their campaigns back then, the name was Michel Roux. He was the director of Carillon Importers in the U.S., and he did a great job with that Absolut Vodka campaign. He was commissioning artists to do their ads, and it was fantastic. So I was lucky enough to get that. I also got a commission for a sculpture for a hotel. One thing I didn't know is I didn't know how the system worked. So, for example, I didn't have a gallery discount. So when galleries came to me and wanted to buy the work, there basically was no room for their 50% discount that they wanted. And I ended up, obviously it was interesting to get in to a gallery. So yeah, I ended up selling it to them and making 0 profit. Because back then, it's interesting how yeah, you were just doubling. I was just doubling my price, my cost, and that's not a smart thing to do. And in fact, that's an interesting thing. Is how do you price your work? It's not easy. With sculpture, you kind of have like some kind of an idea because it's based. You know, you can base it on cost. 3 times, 4 times your cost, because again, you have to have that margin there for trade, which is important. Of course, you have to try to keep your costs down. There will be a point where you start valuing, you know, yourself as an artist and what you've done and what you accomplished. So you're not really multiplying anymore. You're kind of thinking like, what is this sculpture of mine? What should it be worth? You know. But in the beginning, you are looking at costs, and costs in sculpture can be quite high. It also depends where you're casting, in the sense that I think in the States, they do fantastic work, but in the States it's more expensive than in Europe. A lot of people are casting elsewhere, like for example in China. So yeah, you can keep the costs down that way, or perhaps do what I was doing. You know, cast in a similar material to the material that you want it to be in the end, and then sell it, and then make it if you're able to sell it. But so as a young artist, well, first of all, I think the most important thing for a young artist is to define yourself, to define and it's difficult. In the beginning, it's difficult, you know, because you're kind of like going around, you're trying to discover yourself, you don't know what you're going to do. So in fact, I started off as a surrealist, and then I became a symbolist. So initially you might not know what you're going to, how your art is going to turn out and what you want to say through your art. But I think that the sooner you find out your niche, your signature, your unique signature, because there's so much good art out there. There really is. There's a lot of fantastic art, fantastic artists, and a lot of them are, you know, technically incredible. Of course, you don't want it also. You don't just want it to be technically incredible, just academic. You want to bring something new, and so you want to bring yourself into the work. You have to be presenting yourself as an individual. So you have to find something that defines you. I don't know, you know, maybe maybe it's about eyes, maybe it's about hair, maybe it's about trees, maybe it's about the sun, you know. So you can do suns in 1,000 different ways, or an ear. It doesn't really matter, whatever it is, so that you're recognizable. I think it's very difficult to become recognizable. But look, think about Botero. Fantastic. He made a career out of. Now that's it. You know, nobody can do an oversized person without, you know, anybody referring it to Botero, or Giacometti, the opposite. So yeah, think about Calder and talking about abstract, you know. So it's I think it's very important that you find your, as I said, your identity as an artist, and use you have to be, nowadays you have to be good with social media as well. And you know, us old timers, we're just catching up. Now you young guys will eat that up. What qualities do you believe help you to succeed and break? Okay, I think I just went over that. First of all, don't ever think about success. The question is to become successful. Don't ever think about success. If you think about success, I think you lost in the beginning, because a true artist never believes he's successful anyway. You know, you always have to. You're always aspiring for more. You're always trying to achieve, you know, better technical qualities and expressing yourself better, and you're always looking back at the work when after a couple of years you look back at the work like I should have done a better job, or I could have done a better job. By the way, I revisit my sculptures all the time. That's why a lot of them I have force of nature 1, 2, 3, and I'm now making the 4. So I think it was a successful idea, and but I like to revisit it because I like the idea, but through the years, of course, my technical abilities, whatever, or the way I see it is might have changed. The way I think about what I think about now about life and death might be different of how I thought about life and death, of course, 20 or 30 years ago. I've been doing this for 30 years, so it's normal that some of my earlier sculptures I'll revisit, especially if I like the subject matter. But again, don't make success your goal. You'll never succeed. And in fact, then it'll probably become, you have to do it because you love it. You're only going to work hard for something that you love and for something that inspires you. And if you then treat it as an object, treat it as a goal for, again, success, you'll never be true to yourself, because you'll never be true to the artwork, because you're doing that artwork for I think a superficial reason. Success in itself is really meaningless if you do not do something more important with it. If you can't change at least yourself or others through it. What is your favorite work of art by you and why? Oh, I don't know. I would say, I have 3 children, and I love all my children. So I wouldn't be able to say which is my favorite child. And every time I make a sculpture, it's like, my way of giving birth. Of course, it's a lot easier for a man than for a woman. You can't even compare it. But I guess it's it's giving birth in that sense of making a new artwork, and it comes to life. You bring it to life, and so you're always, in a way, you're in love with your last sculpture, with your latest sculpture. Because just this is the new one, it's the baby. But throughout the years, then you have a relationship with the ones that you had done in the past. So I would say probably one of my favorite sculptures, definitely Stairs of Life. It's a very deep, I think, meaningful sculpture to me. Technically, it was, okay. I could probably revisit it, and I should probably revisit Stairs of Life. But I think it was very complete. It had movement. It had a message. I did a short story on it. It's on my Instagram. Maybe, I don't know, a few stories back. You can see it. So Stairs of Life, definitely. Then, of course, Force of Nature, Gravity, Give and Receive, Hand of God, and of course the Monumentals. The Monumentals is, I think, those were my most important achievements to date. What is your favorite work of art by someone else and why? Very interesting. Okay. Well, I love art, and I was inspired by fantastic artists. For sculpting, I would say the Torso del Belvedere by Apollonius of Athens. I saw it first in of course, the Vatican museums. I also knew that it was a piece that influenced a lot of artists. starting from Michelangelo himself and Gian Lorenzo Bernini and many others had studied this piece. It's an unfinished work, or actually it's not unfinished, but it's partly destroyed. But what remains of it is, it's so beautiful. Probably the fact that it's not complete. Because everybody's imagination is different. So you just imagine what the complete work would be like, and you finish it with your mind. So it becomes even more awesome. But that's just a great sculpture. I love it. And then The Gates of Hell by Rodin. Rodin was just what a master. Him and his and Camille Claudel were incredible. I think The Gates of Hell definitely is one of the most beautiful compositions, sculptural compositions in the world. Count Ugolino and His Sons by Carpo. The expression in the hand. See, I'll never be able to do that. The expression in the hands. These guys. I decided a long time ago I was never going to be able to be a Michelangelo or Bernini, a Carpo, Rodin, or any of these. They're just they're these masters that are complete different level. So I realized that my forte would be communication and the stories and the messages behind. It was useless to try to be like these guys. They're just they're unreachable. So I mean, if you see the Count Ugolino in person by Carpo, and you know the softness on that marble through the touch of his hands and the children and his despair, the expression in his eyes, the fact that he could do that with marble. Oh my God, him and Bernini were really masters. Of course, Michelangelo was incredible. A dream accomplished. A dream accomplished. Well, definitely bringing support to Venice. The hands coming out of the canal. That was a dream. That was the most beautiful dream as in my career. The moment that was inaugurated, I felt that was probably there was a before and an after, before support and an after support, and it means a lot to me also because that's the city of my mother was born there, my wife was born there, I have family there. So Venice is very dear to me, and of course Venice represents so much to the world with all the world is going through with the rising waters all over the world, and that's unfortunately something that that hasn't been solved yet and will only get worse. It's interesting, by the way, how now during the COVID, the waters have cleared up in Venice. My cousins send me photographs from the waters. And you don't have dolphins around Venice as some of the images have come out, but you definitely have clear waters, and it was so necessary. All these gigantic cruise ships going through there, which it just can't happen. It can't happen. A city like that has to be protected. It represents us all. It's the beauty that mankind can create with their hands. So it has to be supported. It has to be it has to be helped. A dream to be accomplished. Okay, well, I'd actually like to bring support back to Venice. That would be an amazing dream to bring them back. So many people have asked, and have complained that they've removed the hands And I think the proudest thing, what made me the proudest was that Venetians, actual Venetians, because they're quite difficult. And the fact that Venetians liked the work and felt it as part of as theirs really said a lot to me. You know, I was probably more concerned by, of course, their opinion than by tourists, because that's their city. You know. And they've seen so much throughout the year. They have so many, fantastic works of art, and others maybe not so fantastic. Of course, during and not the Biennale, but you can imagine. So they've been exposed to so much art, and the fact that they, love those two white hands coming out of the canal, and were upset when they left. Really means a lot to me, and so I hope we can convince the city to bring them back, and that would definitely be a dream come true. Well, think about it. You know, the Tour Eiffel wasn't meant to be permanent, and yet it's the symbol of Paris today. Okay, so I'm gonna do this in two parts. So that's it. That's the end of part one. And keep the questions coming. I have a few more, but I'll get to them next week. I have to finish some work now. So again, stay safe, stay sound. Moment of prayer every day for those that have left us. And for those that are struggling right now. And we'll get through this together. Okay? Love you all. Ciao. Bye.